I've been thinking a lot about how life actually changes, and the more I observe people around me, the more I notice that transformation rarely comes from dramatic moments. It doesn't usually arrive with loud announcements or perfect timing. Most of the time, it begins quietly, almost invisibly, with a single decision that doesn't look important from the outside. I don't believe as much in sudden breakthroughs as I used to. I used to think that one big opportunity would appear, one lucky chance, one powerful connection, and everything would shift overnight. But real change, the kind that lasts, seems to grow from something much simpler and much more uncomfortable, the moment you decide to take responsibility for your direction. I once knew a guy who constantly complained that he wasn't moving forward in life. He had ideas, he had ambitions, and he had enough talent to do something meaningful, but he was always waiting. Waiting for the right time, waiting to feel ready, waiting for confidence. One evening, after another long conversation about how stuck he felt, he said something that stuck with me. He said, "I don't think I have a motivation problem. I think I have a decision problem." That sentence changed the way I look at growth. Because he was right. Most of us don't lack information. We don't lack inspiration. We lack commitment to a clear decision. When you truly decide something, something shifts internally. It's subtle but powerful. Before the decision, everything feels optional. After the decision, certain behaviors become non-negotiable. That's the difference. For example, there was a period in my life when I felt constantly distracted. I would wake up and immediately reach for my phone. 30 minutes would turn into an hour. An hour would turn into frustration. I tried to be more disciplined, but that vague intention didn't work. What worked was one specific decision: no phone for the first hour after waking up. That's it. It wasn't a life revolution. It was a boundary. But that boundary gave me space to think, to plan, to read, to move with intention instead of reaction. My mornings became calmer. My work became deeper. And slowly, my self-respect grew. All because of one simple decision that I stopped negotiating with. I also remember a woman I met who stayed in a stable but unfulfilling job for years. She wasn't miserable, but she wasn't growing either. Every year she said, "Maybe next year I'll change something." But maybe never creates movement. One day she didn't suddenly become fearless. She didn't quit dramatically. She made one small but firm decision: every Sunday evening she would apply to exactly one new job. Just one. No pressure to change her life in a week. No unrealistic expectations. Just one application every week. Within months she had interviews. Within a year she transitioned to a better position. Years later she told me that the most important moment wasn't getting hired. It was the Sunday she decided she deserved more. The job was just a consequence of that internal shift. In my opinion, clarity is more powerful than motivation. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. Clarity is structural. When you are clear about a decision, your brain stops debating. You conserve energy because you're no longer arguing with yourself every morning. That's why systems are so effective. Instead of deciding daily whether to work out, you decide once that you train on specific days at a specific time. Instead of deciding every month whether to save money, you automate the transfer. Instead of wondering when to work on your personal project, you assign it a fixed hour. You remove the constant internal discussion. And that internal discussion is often what drains us the most. Another thing I've realized is that avoiding a decision is still a decision. When you postpone improving your health, you're deciding to accept the long-term consequences. When you avoid learning a new skill, you're deciding to stay at your current level. When you stay silent in situations that matter, you're deciding to remain unheard. We often think life is happening to us, but very often it is responding to our patterns of choice, even the passive ones. The absence of a decision doesn't protect you from outcomes. It simply hands control to circumstances. There was also a period when I constantly compared myself to others. Social media made it worse. Everyone looked productive, successful, ahead. I felt behind even when I was working. One evening I noticed something uncomfortable. I was spending more time consuming other people's achievements than building my own. So I created a rule for myself. For every 30 minutes of consuming content, I had to spend 30 minutes producing something. Writing, planning, learning, building, anything that moved me forward. At first it felt forced, almost artificial. But over time something changed. I stopped feeling powerless. I was no longer just observing progress, I was participating in it. That small decision shifted my identity from spectator to creator. I think that's the hidden power of a decision. It changes who you believe you are. The external results may take months or years to appear, but internally, something stabilizes immediately. When you decide, I am someone who trains regularly, you start behaving like that person. When you decide, I am responsible for my growth, you approach problems differently. You may still fail. You may still struggle. But you struggle as someone who has chosen a direction. The mistake many people make is trying to redesign their entire life in one emotional moment. They declare huge goals without building supportive decisions. I will change everything. That sounds powerful, but it's unsustainable. In reality, life shifts through small, repeatable commitments. Reading 10 pages a day. Waking up 30 minutes earlier. Having one uncomfortable conversation. Saving a small percentage consistently. These choices look almost insignificant. But compounded over time, they reshape your trajectory. If there's one practical approach that consistently works, it's this: when you feel stuck, identify the one decision you've been postponing. Usually you already know what it is. It's the conversation you avoid. The habit you rationalize. The application you haven't sent. The boundary you haven't set. Instead of overwhelming yourself with 10 changes, focus on that one. Make it specific. Attach it to a time. Remove alternatives. And then repeat it long enough for it to become part of your identity. One decision can change your life not because it creates instant success, but because it creates alignment. Alignment between who you want to become and what you actually do daily. Over time, that alignment builds confidence. Confidence builds momentum. Momentum creates visible results. From the outside, people may call it luck or talent. But underneath, it started with a quiet moment when you stopped waiting and chose deliberately. Character standing on hill overlooking Sunrise City, sense of new beginning, soft golden light, peaceful confident posture, semi-realistic illustration, Studio Ghibli style. Person tying shoes early morning ready to move forward, close-up dynamic angle, hopeful atmosphere, semi-realistic illustration, Studio Ghibli style. Wide scene of individual walking toward horizon under bright sky, gentle wind, symbolic growth and direction, semi-realistic illustration, Studio Ghibli style. And if this reflection resonated with you, if even one sentence made you pause and think about a decision you've been postponing, then this is exactly why this channel exists. Here we don't chase empty motivation. We talk about real growth, real discipline, real change, the kind that starts quietly and transforms your life step by step. If you want more thoughtful stories, practical insights, and honest conversations about personal growth and success, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Your next decision might be the one that changes everything. And maybe, it starts right here.